Okay, and we are live on YouTube. Excellent. Hello, everybody out there in YouTube world. We have been doing Tooltip Tuesdays. What did you say, Jennifer? How many do we have? Like 9?
Over 90. We have over 90 tooltips that we've been doing over the last year and a half, almost every single Tuesday for the last year and a half, and on Instagram. So it's been recorded there as well as here. And so you can always watch all of them recorded here. Yay, tooltips.
Okay. So now we're going to switch over and start doing them always on YouTube Live first, rather than Instagram and then YouTube.
Well, we just found that it's, for a lot of people, this is a little bit more accessible and interactive. There are other perks and things that we can share with people that it's a little more difficult to do on Instagram. So we wanted something that was a little bit broader and a little bit easier to work with for everybody. So there you go. Better camera angles and so on. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you want to introduce everybody?
I can, sure. So I'm Julia Lauder from Little Metal Foxes. I neglected to put on my apron tonight, but that's okay. Perhaps in the future you'll see it. You can see Jennifer's. Jennifer is Jennifer Stenhouse, also from Little Metal Foxes. And then we have our new instructor, Kelly Webeck, who is currently in our time zone, which is fabulous because normally she's in Berlin. So through the magic of Zoom, we can have her teach for us, even though she lives in Europe. And then my dear friend, Victoria Bjorklund, is also joining us because she is the one who turned us on to Kelly, because she told me about the amazing sketchbooking classes that she'd been taking with Kelly and how fabulous they were and how much she'd gotten out of them. And I was like, and she suggested you should have her teach for Little Metal Foxes. And I was like, yes, let's do that. So here we are. So Kelly has a class coming up the middle of this month, I believe, right, Jennifer? And then, so that's this little taster class. And then there's the 4-week class that's coming up that starts in February. Is that right, Kelly? I think I have that right.
I believe it actually starts in early March.
Early March,
okay. Put the dates right in front of me, though. That would be a good idea.
You know, fortunately, y'all can go to littlemetalfoxes.com and hit the classes button, and then it'll take you right there, and you'll be able to see all of it.
Until February 19th is the beginning of our 4-week session.
Perfect. Okay. And the taster class, which is the 2-hour class, is coming up on
the 15th.
The 15th. Right.
Yep. So 2 weeks about.
Just a little under 2 weeks. Good. So sign up, peeps, because, you know, it's going fast. Okay. So I think, Kelly, you had some slides prepped for us, and you want to talk a little bit about what your class is. People often don't know what a sketchbook is all about. And as Jennifer says, the first thing everybody says when they hear a sketchbooking class is, I can't draw, which, of course, first of all, is not true. And second of all, is
yeah. All right, let me get this shared.
Be so intimidating for a lot of people, that especially craftspeople and like photographers and people that don't normally use that skill. You know, so I love that you've got sketchbooks for metals and jewelers and their inspiration. I've got a few of mine here too. So yeah.
Yes, I think we all have versions of this. So anyway, and I love this. Helen loved this picture. And Kelly, she's like, it's so bright. You know, she loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here to promote my 2 upcoming courses. I'm really looking forward to sharing a little bit about what the courses are going to be like. I'm going to be showing you some very few examples of what you'll see in the courses. I've put together examples of sketchbooks of my own from a few different projects I've made out of metals over the course of my career as an artist. And this first sketchbook is, perhaps you've seen some of the promotional images through Little Metal Foxes. There's images of my sketchbook, including this one, as well as a small little metal umbrella. You'll see another detail shot of it at some point during today's conversation. And yeah, I'll do a quick introduction. As you guys have heard, I'm Kelly Webeck. I'm a photographer and visual arts educator. This is another example of one of my sketchbooks. I've been maintaining sketchbooks for probably about 15 years now, both as a journal as well as a sketchbook through my artist practice. And I found it to be incredibly important to pretty much every element of art making and art thinking and art teaching that I engage in. And also, very importantly, sketchbooks have been an incredible tool for me as a human being to write about what I'm living through, what I'm experiencing, what I'm thinking, and what I'm feeling. And we will see throughout both of the courses examples of how all of those elements come together within a sketchbook to then become the artwork that we create in our studio practices. One of the really big questions that we'll discuss throughout both of these courses is, what is a sketchbook? Here's a list of questions that we'll be talking about in the more extended courses, but what I really want you to know right now is that a sketchbook is a tool for you to use as an artist in the ways that will help you and your artistic practice develop and move forward. Every single artist's sketchbook looks different. So no one's going to maintain a sketchbook practice in the same way. And it's really important for you to find your own voice within the book. And I have a few different slides coming forward with a few different little like nibbles of advice of what I would recommend for people as they're either beginning their sketchbook practice, or even if you've been maintaining a sketchbook practice for years, maybe there's some things that you hadn't considered. But I think one of the most important things is to always keep your sketchbook with you at all times, because you never know when you're going to see something inspiring, when you're going to hear a quote that resonates with you, when you're going to find a postcard at a gallery or an exhibition that you want to tuck inside of the book. It's always a good idea to have it with you. One of the things we'll discuss in the full course is about how to pick a sketchbook. And within that, there's also discussion of size, which if you're wanting to carry your sketchbook everywhere, the size of the book is really important. And I'll show you guys right now before
I know
Yeah.
so many people that just have, like the simplest journals, or and whether they're lined or not lined, and just stuff, and so many scrap the paper that have been stuck into their
Absolutely.
sketchbooks later,
Yeah. My current book is quite small and very light. It has a nice bend to it. And my favorite is always to work with blank, unlined paper. I sometimes like to work with the paper that has like the little dots that makes a grid. But it just, I have to feel connected to the book. I like a beautiful object. I like paper that feels good to write with. And this is the one that feels really good to carry around with me. And yeah, so I'd love to open up the conversation if there are
do you have
questions.
multiple sketchbooks on the go at the same time? Like, clearly that's a travel sketchbook, right? Because it's flexible and it's probably got a sewn binding, so it's not gonna fall apart.
Yeah. This one's pretty durable. At the moment, I do have two sketchbooks. I think there have only been a few different times in my life when I've maintained more than one. And one of the times was when I was really engaging in metalsmithing work. You'll see, I'm gonna hopefully not make anyone too dizzy, but you'll see this sketchbook is one that I worked in at the same time as another one we'll see later. This is a small sketchbook that would fit in like the back pocket of my jeans. And you see this umbrella. There's another sketchbook that I would lay out at the actual like workbench table that's all filthy and covered in metals, grit, and everything. So when I was working with metals, that was a time when I worked with more than one. And at the moment right now, I do also have two. I have two sketchbooks. I have this one that I carry around with me, and I have one that I keep at my studio desk that's very large and handmade. And I used a sewing machine to stitch a number of materials into it. It took me about 6 or 8 months to put everything together and bind it. And that is something that you get to see when you take the longer course.
Awesome. Yay.
We've got lots of people joining us. Oh, Michelle Lier, who's also one of our one of our instructors. She teaches
one of our instructors. Yes.
One of our instructors. She teaches a filigree class, and she's got a really cool one coming up. So hi to Michelle. And Kathleen Faulkner is with us, and Ghost Town Metalwork. And we have one of our friends from the knife community, Knife Spot. Shout out Knife Spot. And those guys because they are awesome. And Melissa, I think, is still out there. So if you guys have any questions for Kelly, please type them into the chat and I will let her know. Michelle says, I like embossed leather sketchbooks with a thick handmade paper. She's here. She's cooking dinner with her family. So hello. Nice spot said, best committed drawing tool for sketching, whatever's available. Wanting to know. So yeah, what's your, if you want to unshare, we can sort of.
Or if you were to share, you had a couple more images, I think, didn't you, Kelly?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can go ahead and flip through them now. Someone mentioned a leather bound book, and I'll just point out this is a short stack of a very small fragment of the sketchbooks I've maintained over my career, including several. This one's a leather bound, and then this top one, it's not quite leather. I think it's made out of like a floral linoleum that I just repurposed. And then here's a faux leather.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And see, I love this too, because it is that idea of like quilting together your sketchbook and your ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is what I talked about when I said at one point I did have two sketchbooks, the small one for my back pocket. This is the one that sat at the desk when I was sitting with a saw and like hammering out all the metals and everything. And you can see I used transparencies to help make the form before I cut into the metal. And then rather than throwing those away, I taped them directly into the book. And we'll talk about archival materials in the full courses. And you can see here, I did not use archival tape. You can see that it's aging and it's actually quite gross, but it served its purpose.
It gets dry and the adhesive gives up, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
I'll actually use the magic tape to transfer designs onto my metal. And then if I am able to peel it off carefully enough, I will I'll stick the actual tape that I use to cut the piece into my sketch.
I love it. That's great.
But I want to say also what I thought your class is so important about is like to talk about how different sketchbooks can be so utilitarian. Like it doesn't have to be something you're submitting to MoMA. Like I think like having a sketchbook that really like is good for you, like works for you and a place for you, a vessel for you to write those notes down or how you want to capture so you can keep moving each step forward is like the most important thing.
Absolutely. I think one hurdle that's really difficult for people is like, of course, beginning is always difficult, but feeling like the book is something precious where only the most valuable and important thoughts go in. That's a thought that I always encourage everyone, like get that as far away as possible because you never know what gems are within there. And like here, this is nothing. This turned into nothing. These little pieces here.
Well, it's like having your first coloring book, and it's okay to color outside the lines.
Absolutely.
You stick in like stuff you've torn out of your mom's favorite, cooking book or whatever. It's like, just stick it all in here. And that's what it is. It's just, this collection of your ideas and a place to organize stuff, it's, and it becomes really, for me, the inside of my head, it's like, what just stuff that I'm just
a perfect
playing
moment
with or looking
for
at.
the inside of our heads.
Yeah, the inside, what a mess it is, right?
Get it out of the inside of your head in one sense. Otherwise, it's like swimming around, right? Like you got to get it out there so you can keep moving forward. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it's so easy to lose. Room. I'll look back at old sketchbooks and even ideas that didn't become anything. I was like, oh, I remember where I was when I wrote that down. I remember, why I thought that was cool. It's totally fine if you don't think it's cool anymore, but it was like kind of like, and then sometimes I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, I missed that idea. I like that.
I was going through some of these because some of these are 20 years old for me. And
amazing.
I was going through some of them and I'm like, where does that come from? I don't even remember doing that. I'm like, that's a really good idea.
You should make it now. I'm going to end my share so we can see your sketchbooks bigger. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want me to spotlight you, Jennifer, so you can hold some of it? Spotlight you.
Sure, if you want. Yeah, here you go. So I've got just a random ragtag collection like you do. I've even got I've got a couple by my table at home, just when I'm like, and Jason's got football on or something like that. But yeah, I've got, all kinds of stuff when I'm just like drawing out ideas or trying to figure out a link. And there's just, it just goes on.
Which was the one that you thought was cool that you were like, I don't even remember drawing that.
There's just, I was using one of them for like life drawing and working out a ring idea. And yeah, where is that? Where'd it go?
Gosh, this is so cool to see.
It's really good.
Like, it looks like it's quite a pile of them too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, and some of these, and I've got, little cards and stuff that are ideas for trying to figure out. Yeah. Trying to figure out how it's going to fit on the wall. Just working out the logistics of the technical stuff of some of the pieces as well. Just making notes. But there are, this one, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. That's fun. And so just trying to, because it's got wings. I'm like, and that, I remember what that was from. I was looking at a bunch of Edwardian, like decorative elements. And I was like, oh, that'd be really cool as a creature if it could just walk away. But this stuff, I'm like, I don't remember doing these. and I was like, yep, no,
those are nice. Yeah.
But just sort of working out like little thumbnail sketches, with an idea of how I was going to do a surface with enamel. And I totally forgot about these. And now I'm like, oh, those would be really good as brooches. But I was actually working on it for something else. But yeah, I've just got, stuff pinned in from other, there goes one, stuff pinned in from other sketches, and just trying to keep
probably
everything.
not archival tape.
Yeah,
and that's okay. It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be, but it's better if you do, for the longevity of the book, it is better in terms of.
And that turned into a piece that I really love. It's called Persephone's Pet. And yeah, so, just, they're doodles for me. A lot of the books are just, me getting out ideas. And most of mine are blank, but every now and then when I'm doing something like, if I'm working on like a bespoke piece for somebody, I might use one that's like this, that's like blank on the top and lined on the bottom. And that way I can take notes, and you can see that I completely will color outside the lines. But I've got, all kinds of like, it's just like notes and doodles and how it's going to work and what it's going to be or have in it and the ideas. And
I would love to see these sketches next to the final pieces.
Some of them I have final pieces. Some of them they never got there. But yeah, just taking notes from a bespoke piece.
Another piece has some of that sketchbook, though.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Even if it isn't the whole piece, basically is what you're saying, Victoria, like some element of it or something that the genesis of it was in the sketchbook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was a wedding piece that I did that was commissioned. It was a ring. Yeah. So yeah, but that's kind of what I use them for. So Ghost Town Metalworks says, it's amazing to me how I sketch and then afterwards I don't have an immediate plans for it. I second your emotion on that, and will literally like fall out of my head, same thing, and then rediscover it later, ready to execute the design. Yeah. Nice Spot said, I had a colleague who said sketchbooks are the best places to make your mistakes.
Yes. I loved the way you said, Jennifer, a bit ago, like that the sketchbook can be a place to, how did you say it? Work out the logistics of the technical. Like, I think that's so important in a three-dimensional medium where you really have to figure out how everything pieces together. And I'm a few years out of doing any metalsmithing work, but I seem to remember that you had to think really hard about the order of what got soldered when, because of the strength of the solder and the type of materials, and when you wanted to add other things. And it seems like the sketchbook is a really great place to work out those details.
And it's like, for me, it's like I can like I know that it's going to be in here, I know that something's got to be here, and I can be like scribble because I know what that is. I don't have to like render it, to completion, because like you said, it's not going to be at the Met, Victoria.
MoMA.
MoMA. Yeah, thank you. God help us. But yeah, you know, it's just, you know, I think a lot of Michelle was saying she would love to have rough renderings of the sketches from friends on her studio wall. I think they're beautiful, and I agree. You know, there's something that's just, you know, it's just that ephemeral, fleeting thought sometimes for metalsmiths, that it's just like, I know what it is. It's going to be this thing, and it's like our shorthand, you know.
Well, I don't think that's confined to metalsmiths. Do you?
No, not at all.
No. I think every artist has like that little smidgen of idea. And then like, I think with Kelly's class, which is great, is that each week, as you're trying to sort of define what you want and different examples and just putting it in this sketchbook, and just, I think Kelly's class allows you to just build this practice to just like build on your ideas each week. And you'd be so surprised, you know, I'm not giving any secrets away, but she'll ask you, how many pages do you think you can put together, you know, each, and, you know, of course I was like, I'll do a page a day. And she was like, that's a little ambitious.
I would have, when I was teaching like drawing at Savannah College.
And so it was like, if I could do 4 pages a week, you know, that was great. And that seemed to be my way of working through a project. And it's like, you know, as you're working through your piece or your like project, you know, for like, just like, you know, with your example of whatever made you excited, you get a couple images. Okay, I'll look at this soldering thing. I'll find this metal, like just even 4 pages of that. You add that times 4 weeks, you've gotten so far. And you've also got all that out of your head too, you know, so then each week you're building and working to something that can get there.
Yeah. What I thought was so interesting about your sketchbook practice, Victoria, is that you would work within one book for a specific body of work. Whereas so many of the examples that I show, artists have one book that like everything goes into. And like, that's the case for me. In my book, it's like, I work in it this way for one thing and this way for another thing. And you have this book that's this one idea that you wanted to see all the way through. And so page after page, it's working through ideas, problem solving for a very specific end point. I was so impressed with that.
Yeah. Because I've got like sketchbooks every place, and a lot of them are the same thing.
I would get
like
so confused.
The same project in different places, because it's just like me working it out. You know, once I've got it down on paper, sometimes I don't have to go back to it, because once I've worked it out, I'm like trying to figure out how it's gonna like go together. And once I work it out, like just by putting pen to paper, it's in my head and I can get it done. So sometimes I never have to see it again, but I'll work it out like multiple times in like different locations wherever I have a sketchbook. So yeah. It's like in my head, and I just have to have something to like draw on a wall, you know, wherever
like
I have.
You know, you just like pieces of the idea everywhere.
I always wanted to have, I wish I had like tear off sheets in the shower when I was in grad school, because I wish I had like colored crayon soap that they make for kids. I could be like, la 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 la. Because I'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh, it's so fresh. Yeah, just draw on the tile. And then take a picture of it, and then because I would have my best ideas like first thing in the morning in the shower.
Someone needs to do that. I mean, now you can just step out of the shower and you take a picture with your phone. Back then, you didn't have a cell phone.
Well, true. But yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, as a crafts person, I mean, I started out in photography and drawing and printmaking and doing that along the way, and doing some bookmaking. But I know, as kind of coming into craft, from that you know, art with a capital A, you know, philosophy a million years ago, that a lot of times craft people are very intimidated by that idea of you know, having to commit something to paper, because to them they're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm good enough to do this. And I know that I have ways of kind of like breaking that exercise for them. How do you convince them that this is a good idea, that they can do this?
So I recommend a few different steps for people that are afraid to get started. With like, there's nothing scarier than a blank piece of paper in front of an artist. I think I was told that by my high school art teacher, and it just like really stuck with me. So one thing, it might sound really silly. If you have a book that you're afraid to work in, like take some liquid ink of some sort and just dump it in the book. So it just like all of a sudden has color on it, and let that dry, and then, and then move on. You'll be less afraid of the book. And
that blank page is so intimidating.
Yeah. Also, just if you're afraid to start writing, then don't write yet. If you're afraid to put pen to paper, don't do that. Maybe like go to a hardware store and collect those little paint swatches and pick a color palette that inspires you, or flip through a magazine that you find inspiring, cut out some colors or textures, or I don't know, some shapes that you find really interesting. It doesn't have to be drawing. It doesn't have to be writing. Those are very important elements, but they don't have to be the first, they don't have to be the first step if it feels too big of a leap.
Yeah. Michelle and Ghost Town were chiming in here too. It says some of the original sketches of important pieces I did, whether I had sentimental meaning or I felt like they were pivotal moments in my metalsmithing, metalsmith walk, are actually framed in her studio as one of those things that's sort of like self-affirmation, which is really a good idea, because it's like, yeah, I did that. That's where that came from. That's a great idea. And the other one is from Michelle Lier, and she said, I keep one sketchbook at a time, and it goes everywhere with me. I don't think I can keep track of more than one. I don't have it with me. If I don't have it with me, I get really anxious. I feel like I forgot something. And if we're camping and I forgot my mechanical pencil, I will make my husband stop at the store so I have a pencil just in case. One of my greatest joys is to see a 2D idea coming into 3D reality. And Michelle said her sketches are rough. It's just ideas. It's not anything special. Knife Spot says, habit makes things, the process, get into the habit of using a sketchbook. And it is true. Once you start doing that, it becomes like this thing, and that does not take long.
4 weeks. It takes like 3 or 4 weeks. This is why there's a 4-week class.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the take it twice, you even get it better.
Yeah, and you
extra
just keep
ingrained.
Enforcing it. You keep enforcing it, and it's one of the things I would do with my students is I would make them keep it in the bathroom when they were doing like the first drawing class. And they were like, I don't have time to draw on it every day. And I'm like, are you in the bathroom once a day? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, when you're sitting down doing whatever you have to do for however long you're in there, draw. And they're like, okay. They're like, what? And I'm like, whatever's in front of you. So I would end up with these pictures of like soaps and, these wonderful little still lifes that were in the bathroom, or just doodles or whatever. I'm like, just sit there and put something in the book for 5 minutes. If you're in there for, 5 minutes, just, do that. Just get it out of you that way too. Like, release all the shit.
Like one of the time frames that has been a good, a lot of my students have found time in the morning when they're like drinking their coffee or their tea. Oftentimes, especially for artists who are also parents, they find that's the only time before the entire household wakes up. And as Victoria knows,
we're looking at you.
We talk about like building a daily practice or building a sketchbook practice. You have to figure out, like, it's not realistic to say, poof, I'm going to spend 2 hours a day on my sketchbook. You have to say, like, you have to set realistic and reasonable expectations for yourself, because if you set expectations too high, then you let yourself down, and then you just don't want to keep going at all. And
I think with this class that you do is, I think you kind of figure out a rhythm. Like you get it, and you're like, in your life, you can figure out, like, one, you're figuring out what type of sketchbook works for you. Is it small? Is it big? Is it whatever? What's going to work for me? And can be digital too. It doesn't always have to be hardback. And she talks about that. So you don't have to have it pen and paper. And then like what schedule works for you? It doesn't have to be 4 pages a week or daily, or it's just one day on Saturday or whatever, whatever works for everyone. I mean, I think it's like you really tailor the class to teach people how to use a sketchbook in their artistic practice forward.
Yeah. Jen Serene said her 8-year-old blows through a sketchbook easily in a day. And
oh my gosh.
she thinks she has helped me. It's not such a precious thing. And she said she thinks it's helped her because it's not such a precious thing, just to add marks and write down ideas and then look back at the old ideas. And I got to tell you, if you want inspiration on how to do a sketchbook, give it to like a 2 to an 8-year-old person and be like, here's a book, fill it up. And they're like, okay. And they'll go to town. And it's like, once they're done with it, then take it and then do your stuff in there. And it suddenly seems like you've got this really layered,
and it's a collaboration as well.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah. I use a lot of Xerox too.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I'll use a lot of Xerox too. I'll like take pieces that are like halfway through or take a picture of it and print it out and then stick it in the journal. That way I won't lose it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I went to a concert at one point, a guitar. I was in graduate school in Austin, Texas. And so there's lots of great music. And it wasn't even a concert. It was like a guy playing at a bar, but he was talking about his songwriting sketchbook. And he said that, really what it comes down to when you have kids and a sketchbook is the songs that get made are the ones that didn't get scribbled on, like, because it was definitely like the kids were using the book too. So it's like the ones I end up turning into songs are the ones I can still read, which was kind of lovely. It's sort of like, well, the universe helped decide which ones those were going to be.
It's interesting you bring up like illegibility within the book, because we talk about getting ideas out, and once it's on the paper, then you kind of have a bit more room in your head. But there's also something really freeing about when things are no longer legible within the book, like when it's layered up with paint or maybe something spills on it. There's something about like, oh, well, maybe that wasn't meant to be there. Like, maybe I don't need to know what I was thinking.
Something you don't really want, you know what I mean? You want to write it out and then put something over it,
Yeah.
Now, I would take like coffee spills or whatever happened in the journal and turn them into drawings.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
As I said with my prompt, I would intentionally like, whoops, coffee on my book now.
Yeah.
Breaks it in a little bit.
or even if you're working, like you said, with a particular palette of things and you splash it with like watercolors or inks or whatever, and then start doodling into that, it can lead you down the rabbit hole real quick.
Victoria has some really beautiful examples, if you don't mind sharing your sketchbook of working out the color palette for your artist book.
Sure.
You got it?
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have the book in front of you, or should I pull up the images?
Let's just go with your slides and
okay.
I can make it happen.
Okay.
You can talk and she can
Well, I'm gonna need.
I love it. Yay, technology.
I know, it's incredible. I'm going to take a second to find the right.
That's okay. I was going to say, while you're doing that, while you're finding that, I was going to comment that I've always found sketchbooks a little on the intimidating side, right? They were a little kind of precious and stuff. I'm left-handed, which means, finding the right sketchbook, I would always write on the wrong side of it, basically, because then the binding wasn't getting in my way. But I also found that trying to have it with me was always really hard. But what I do is I keep basically field notes. So when I'm working in my studio, this is the set that sort of what the sketchbook has become for me. When I'm working in my studio, I kind of approach it like a scientist, it's like a lab book. And so it's materials and process, it's a list of materials and tools and process. And then because I end up teaching a lot, I will take the material that often will turn into my handout. So this, in terms of my practice and the way my studio works, my sketchbook has turned into field notes / lab book that its purpose is to help me prepare better to teach other people, which
Let's
is
do
fine.
a sketchbook. Yeah. Yes, definitely.
These are beautiful. Oh my gosh, Victoria.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm doing I did a book on swimmers. I'm a swimmer. And so in this course with Kelly, I took it 2 times. So she anyways, it was just about me sort of fleshing out this idea about female swimmers. I'm a photographer, but in this, as an artist, I wanted to figure out, like on the left side, there's like what color of blue was I'm adding watercolor to my photograph. So, you know, here in this, so in her class, we, you know, share our sketchbooks. I mean, she's like, however many, it's like everyone's practice, how many pages you want to share. And for me, I'll just say that for me, I like the 9x12 sketchbook. That was like big enough for me to put a lot of examples. Like, obviously that's not portable. So, you know, if you want more of a portable, then this isn't maybe what you would want. But for me, I have a lot of research, want to put stuff down. And so, you know, that's what the sketchbook is about. And so the left-hand side is about all of these. I'm trying to find the right pool color blue with all the watercolors and what I want to do. And then the right side is just different brushes that I'm testing out to put over the photograph. Like, how am I going to make that wave and what that's going to look like? Like, as you can see, it's a filbert brush or a round number 20 round brush or a hake brush. And so, like, you know, each week just taking time to just practice these things. And so that's where like a sketchbook can be so utilitarian to get.
Well, you know, and enamelists will do like watercolors like this too, to work out colors. So a lot of enamelists I know will use watercolors almost in an identical kind of way to work out, you know, how they want that tone to come through, because the color can completely change the emotion of a piece. It can change how it feels, you know, just being around it. And yeah, if you've ever picked out a color for a room, you know what I'm talking about. Because it can, you know, you walk into a room and you pick the wrong color, boy, it's like,
we've all been there. Yes.
But I love this idea of working out your colors this way. These are beautiful. And actually, Julie Ackerman said, beautiful. And super exciting hearing so many ways from so many artists. And you have actually inspired, or we have actually inspired Jen Serene's hubby. He's overhearing and feeling inspired. He just sat down with paper and just started drawing.
That's
amazing.
Awesome. See?
He was overhearing everything we were talking about. So, yay!
While we speak, while we're on the YouTube live. Do you have other pictures of Victoria's?
Yeah, we do. I think there's probably about 25 in this folder.
Oh, we don't have to do 25.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just say that. So this is like, so I knew I was going to do a book. So these are just different photos, you know, obviously Pinterest, like cutting them out or printing them out of different like book structures that I was interested in, you know, how I was going to put that together. So then I put that on my sketchbook. You can do the next one, I guess. So that one is just like figuring out how to put the watercolor on the photograph. Like you can see, I have different cold press papers and the cans, like different papers, and how the watercolor went onto the paper. So image doesn't print well. So like, again, that didn't work out well. Like, meaning I think that second one was that the paint was too like dark of some sense. Yeah. Yeah. And then I like those other two, obviously. Yeah. And so then I came to this conclusion of like, okay, I like this book structure. I also wanted to, I submitted it to 10x10. It's a Tieton in Eastern Washington. So it was a call of entry where their parameters were 10x10. So it was like, okay, I found a structure that was going to work, and I found this inspiration, measured it out. Okay, next slide. And then here I am trying to figure out the cover, and you know, just showing Kelly in my class, like, I'm really working at this. I'm trying to figure this out. Yeah.
I gotta tell you, Victoria, I love that image on the right, because it's like title, swim. A commercial image, maybe. And it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
but-
I mean,
but
that's exactly
that
what this
juxtaposition
sketchbook is all about. Like, you don't know yet, right? But you know,
yeah.
because otherwise, I don't know, ladies, this keeps us up at midnight. You know, we got
I know. That's why I have a sketchbook by the bed.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love the juxtaposition of those two images on the right. That's awesome.
Okay, next page. Yeah, so this is also just me. I did another call of entry. Actually, in Smithston, big photo lens scratch. She talked about importance of failure, embrace it. You know, inspired by, you know, in my sketchbook, just to that. I don't know. Just notes in all of this about. And then of course I've highlighted. I had a call of entry on May 20th. And I did submit that and I was accepted. So I was like,
Amazing. Yeah.
It was actually pretty fantastic. Thank you. Yes.
That's awesome. So I mean, but this was one sketchbook that was like all about just this one
Yeah.
thing.
Right? Yeah. But then keep going. I think there might be more. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot more. I can actually start the folder at the very beginning.
No, we don't need too much. So then I think this is me trying to figure out the title. So I'm like, you know, like I said, title ? And so here I am. I do keep going back to this page. Like I had this like different ideas of titles. So it's this like, is it going to be bathing costume? Like just all things about swimming. Like what is it going to be? And then finally I came up with upstream swim. But that didn't come like right then. It was really like starting a page, keep like in all of my research, writing a name. Like, so if you do a piece of jewelry or whatever your project is, you know, putting an adjective and keep adding to it. Like, I mean, it's like a title of a book, you know.
Oh, such a good idea. I am terrible at titling my pieces, right? I mean, some people are just really gifted at that, but I am terrible at it. And this is a really good way to use a sketchbook for that.
I love this. I do the same thing, Victoria. I love this process. And it's one of those things that's so good when you're like brainstorming, because sometimes you'll just be like, I don't know. And you just start like writing stuff down. And then I end up looking at Google and thesauruses and, you know, just like bubbling out from all my brainstorming. And, but yeah, it's such a great place to do that. I love my sketchbook for that.
Yeah. And that wasn't in one day. That was like going back and adding different words each, like during the week. So don't think, well, I mean, part of it was like, okay, I need to think about my title, and I spent a little bit of time, but you know, I didn't come to upstream swim until a couple weeks into that. Okay, next slide. So then again, this is all about so my book is about female notable swimmers in the 20s, and so this is a lot of research about different so I knew I was going to have these swimmers and just their stories, and also highlighting what they were great about, and also still practicing how I'm going to do, you know, the watercolor on top of that. Next slide. I don't know how many there are.
Oh, that might actually be the.
Oh, okay.
That might be the end. We can have a look
at the final. Do you have the final?
I do have the final pieces.
Okay. Yes. So then
that one as well.
This is the final book. It was at the Houston Center of Photography. They purchased it. University of Puget Sound purchased it in their collection. So, yes. So this was the.
Oh, wow.
This is the book. I know. Take our class. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's the writing, and all the writing is also from the research and the blue and all the everything. Yeah. So
so did you had to hand, like, each one of these books has a slightly different, because you painted the ink on, right?
Yes, and that was all figuring out which brush was going to be the right brush to do that, which blue was going to be the blue, which image, which person, and in the text also highlight. So all of this is also about how in the 2020 Olympics, that was because of COVID, it was the first time women were able to swim the same events as men. And Katie Ledecky, as you all know, blew it out of the, she did the
Out of the
15.
water.
Yes, yeah, she swam the 4-mile swim. And just even before that, Gertrude Ederle in the 1920s swam the English Channel, beating the men's by 2.5 hours. So like she knew that 100 years ago, yet the Olympics had not caught up to that. And so that was what the whole book was about. So
Nice
That is
thought.
so cool.
When looking back at sketches 20 years ago, it's like a memory in a time capsule. I remember all kinds of things from that time period. And I think that's really true about like Victoria's sketchbook, especially looking back at that like time capsule, especially when you're looking at like a particular mark, because it's like it brings you right back to where you were. It's like who you were dating and what was going on, and all those things. When you look back, and it's like, why was I making those decisions? What was influencing that? And all that's still there. And it's the simplest thing in the sketchbook that can just take you back to that. So yeah.
This is so cool. I'm so glad I got to see a little bit of the piece that, I know you would talk to me about Upstream Swim and you showed me some of the pictures, but it's cool to see it in the context of the class you did with Kelly and how much Kelly's influence affected it. So
yeah, the finished pieces. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple of the finished pieces here in the studio from mine, but they're just, it's so good to see other people's journals and those kinds of examples. And I know that Kelly has all kinds of examples, especially for this class for metalsmiths. So I think that's going to be really great for people who are especially intimidated, that it's like, people do sketch and make maquettes in all kinds of different ways. And this is just a way to help you organize that and to help you understand what's possible, and that it's okay. Giving you permission.
Everything is okay. You have permission to do anything you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is, our time's just about up. And we've had quite a number of people watching on live. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much. And giving us their opinions and what's going on in their world. And I just want to say thank you to Victoria and to Kelly for joining us. And it's always great when we have guests for Tooltip Tuesday. So, and talking about that. Victoria, what's your favorite utensil for getting into the sketchbook with?
Let's see, what is it? Actually, the pencil.
Pencil?
It's a regular old
classic
number 2 pencil.
Regular number 2?
Yeah.
Julia, what's yours?
Oh, for me, it's always a mechanical pencil. And you actually helped me resuscitate my mechanical pencils, because I had 2 mechanical pencils that had this, like, this is a great tooltip. We'll have a little Sugru tooltip. I had they had this plastic sort of sleeve that was around the button that you push, and it degraded and fell apart. And so then like all the pointy bits of the plastic were sticking into my fingers. And Jennifer gave me some Sugru, which is the moldable epoxy, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
And so, because I had 2 of these pencils, I loved them so much, and I had 2 of them that both of them had died that way. And so I molded the Sugru around to make a new piece, because then I always use up my eraser. So I have to put an eraser on it from like a regular, number 2 pencil. But yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. So I've got, these actually fit into this mechanical pencil that I love. And this guy has like big chunkin' graphite that goes in it. I love this because it's really soft. But I've got like watercolor brushes. I've got Sharpies of all sizes. I've got, this is one of the other mechanical pencils that I love. I love this thing. This is a Fat Boy.
Oh
wow, I've never heard of that.
I love this thing. So again, it's got like big chunks.
Oh wow, okay.
Graphite. So because I can just be like, on there and erase out stuff when I want, like when I'm working on a dark piece and I want white lines or a shine, I can kind of like color it all and erase back out and use the eraser as my drawing tool. But yeah, I've just got like, boxes of things that make marks, and I mean, whether it's, a blue ballpoint pen, which I love a good Parker ballpoint, that's great. One of my, oh gosh, I just found these the other day and I was like, oh yeah, just having like a box of graphites or leads for me makes me happy. But one of my instructors when I was in New Mexico was, did these amazing, just ephemeral drawings, huge drawings that were done with silver point. And silver point is the most just absolutely gorgeous way to work. And he would gesso these pieces of board just to like velvet non-existence. They just were like, they almost looked frictionless. They were just powder. Wow. They were beautiful, and would go in with fine silver and do the drawing in fine silver. And as the silver ages, it like darkens and deepens. And he would also do that with copper point as well, which is really a lot older way to go. But using literal like lead wire or silver wire or copper wire, tin wire, all those will leave that particle on the surface of a gessoed board or gessoed surface or pre-prepared surface. And it just is spectacular. So yeah, I'll use, whatever. whatever I got.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Cocktail napkin.
Do what you got to do.
Jen Serene said that she'll use like index cards, and I love blank index cards for all kinds of stuff. But that's great because if you have a stack of those around, you can.
Well, if you ever like read about Agatha Christie, she had a whole like all of hers was about crazy little tiny notebooks or note cards or how she kept track of things. Yeah.
Post-it notes.
I wouldn't get anything done without Post-it notes.
How did we live without the, the accidental, because I believe the Post-it note adhesive was an accident, right? It was, they were trying to get, and I probably, maybe this is an urban myth, but my belief was that they were trying to develop some other kind of adhesive that was more permanent, and they made one that didn't stick very well. And so then, they made lemonade out of lemons. They made Post-it notes out of the not very adhesive.
Yeah.
But, what would we do without them?
Yeah. Well, I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us for Tooltips tonight, and we appreciate it. And and thanks to our special guest, and Julia, thanks for hosting it tonight. And we're going to have, going forward, we're going to be doing more Tooltips on Tuesdays on YouTube. In fact, Michelle Lier and Chris are going to join us for the Tooltips on the new soldering for the filigree frames, filigree frameless frames for, I've got them here.
The Lion Punch Forge tool.
Yes.
Oh, yes. The soldering stencil.
Soldering stencil. So they're going to join us next week for that. And we've got our newsletter is out, so be sure to subscribe on our website for the newsletter, because that gives you all of the tips, what's coming up. It also has different references and a monthly discount for episodes.
You have to subscribe to the newsletter to get the monthly discount.
Right.
And if you want to know about the tooltips, if you want to, if you forget about tooltips and you want to be notified, just subscribe to the YouTube channel and it will notify you automatically the minute we go live. And then you can be like,
I forgot. Yeah. So we'll be here. And all 90 plus tooltips are already here on YouTube. So take a look at those. I know we have a couple of people that I've talked to recently. They're like, my COVID plan is to binge all the tooltips. I'm like, what a great idea. There's like 90 hours.
But if you do get sick with COVID, then you should have something to do, right?
Yeah. If you're isolated anywhere and you need to do something, just check all that out. But thanks to everybody. I would appreciate it lots. And Kelly, we're looking forward to you teaching class again for us. And Victoria, it's great to see you again. And Julia, I will see you later on.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the courses.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, everybody.